Thomas here with Much Props. Going to give you another how-to video. Today we are making something Batman themed, like across multiple Batmans. I recently was a guest judge at SuperCon in South Dakota, and I had an accident on the way to the convention in Oklahoma. Me and my brother kind of got stranded, and through the kindness of a auto body repair guy, he kind of helped us get a shredded tire off, bend back a bumper, and get us back along our way. And I asked him, what are you into? And he told me that he liked Batman. So I was like, okay, I'll make something Batman. So today I'm going to try and tackle every Batarang from like the movies / TV. So West, KEATON, KILMER, CLOONEY, BALE, and AFFLECK. And just make the Batarangs from each of those. I'm probably going to miss some pretty epic ones not doing from any of the other things, but Batman's got like 80 years worth of stuff to pick from, so that's what I decided on. So today we are building a bunch of Batarangs. Free templates down in the description. Let's get to building. I looked at a bunch of reference images, found some measurements from screen-used props, and guesstimated on the rest of it really. I'm sure that none of these are 100% accurate, but at least they're close enough that you can kind of make out what they're supposed to be. There are also a few variations to a lot of these depending on the scene and the purpose, so print out the template, read the cover page, and let's get started working on making some epic Batarangs. I figured I might as well go chronologically in order, so you'll see up in the top left hand corner the name of the person whose Batarang I am currently making. I realized that there are many other versions of the Batarang. These are just the 6 that I focused on for this video. The base of all these Batarangs, I use 6mm EVA, specifically a super dense kind called What the Foam. You can get it on Amazon. I actually scanned in my template before I started because I knew that I'd be cutting this thing all up over the place to get my reference lines. The pink highlighted color you see on some of these where I used EVA dowels cut in half to build up that structure. The diameter I used is written on each of these parts to help you out. You'll also see orange highlighted areas. This signifies that edges have a bevel to make it look like it is sharpened. I only worried about the front of the Batarang as I knew I was going to display them in a shadow box and not have them out in the open. Once I got the base cut out and the middle dowel shaped, I spread contact cement over the whole front and the underside of my dowels, then tacked them into place. My reference lines I transferred on will help me to keep things relatively even on both sides. Once I get it all tacked down, I drill out a hole on one wing tip. In West Batarang, it had a string that was tied around one side because he used it to like lasso enemies and swing across areas, so it's a little bit different application than the other Batarangs after it.
I was 6 when the 1989 Keaton Batman came out, so I don't know if I really remember watching it at that age, but I definitely do remember as a young kid being obsessed with Batman and quoting a lot of lines from that movie. Trace the template onto the 6mm foam and cut it out. This is a great build for beginners to knock out in a couple of hours. You can practice clean, straight cuts and simple construction. Several of these Batarangs are designed to fold, like this one is. I didn't want to take that extra step. You could cut it down the middle and then put a hinge on the back, but I just kind of made a faux line here in a second. Originally, I thought about cutting small strips of 2mm EVA, like what is marked inside the dowels, to make the ridges, but decided to just burn them in instead with a wood burner. Use a respirator and work in a well-ventilated area while doing this. It puts out some nasty fumes and you don't want to breathe that stuff in. I also burned in a fake fold in the middle while I was at it, and for this one I actually did burn some details onto the backside too, even though you're probably never going to see it. Instead of trying to cut the dowels to fit the area, I rough cut them on the base when I stuck them down and then trim them up to fit later. This will make for a smoother transition and require less pushing or stretching to get them to fit perfectly. To shape large areas, I use a sanding drum, and then to smooth out the surfaces, I switch to a stone bit on my rotary tool. It helps you to sneak up on how you want things to look instead of trying to hog it all out at one time. KILMER's was probably the most intricate of the 6 and my least favorite in terms of design. This is another one that technically folds in 2. There are multiple layers to this one, so look closely here. I traced the whole pattern once, cut out the little notches in between the wingtips and the body, and then traced that onto some 2mm foam. Then cut out the middle body and the wingtips to trace onto 6mm foam. So there's like 3 layers that go in. The middle ridges will be using some more of those small EVA dowels. I try to line up the layers as close as I can to the outside that I don't have to do a whole bunch of sanding, and it also helps me to not stretch out the foam too much because I don't want to accidentally put a curve upward from the pulling, so I try and make everything flat when I lay it down. I start from the center and work my way out. Is it weird that I kind of like the color scheme of the foam before I put the primer on? It kind of looks like a weirdly shaped sandwich with all the layers showing through. I cut some points into the ends of the dowel and then sand them over to keep from trying to get to them once they are attached. I also brought back the wood burner for this one to burn in the grooves instead of stacking on the 2mm foam like I have templated out for you. I'm going to leave that there just in case you don't have a wood burner. You can see that you can put those extra ridges in there by adding the foam instead. Yes, the Clooney Batman. While it was by far my least favorite of the movies, I did kind of like his Batarang. I also saw a version with some scalloped edges, which looked pretty cool too. I think if you oversize this pattern, it would make for a super cool double-headed axe blade. That might be an idea for a later build. The hardest part of this was cutting the beveled edge. I got most of it with the box cutter and then refined the shape with my rotary tool. You could also use a sanding stick or a block to extend that angle cut out and make it nice and even. The KILMER one took me quite a while just to get it right. This one took less than 30 minutes. Once again, I purposefully oversized the top layer so that I could sand it back flush with the base altogether. Bale's Batarang is definitely the simplest. It took me less than 10 minutes to finish this one off. Design-wise, I think it's my favorite, and it's a pretty easy one to knock out for a Batman fan. I also thought about cutting part of the tip off and then gluing a magnet on the end. Then you could put a piece of metal under your clothing or another magnet and go as a goon that Batman brought down. I thought that would be a fun idea if you had a kid that wanted to dress up as Batman. You could be the enemy that goes around with them and wearing the Batarang stuck into your body. I don't know, food for thought. For AFFLECKs, I decided the 2mm layer would be better than burning in a channel. It would give me a crisper line and make just a little wider of a groove than my wood burner tips could take out. A lot of times when I'm cutting out foam, I rough cut the pieces first. Then when I'm making my cuts on my lines, I move the foam sometimes instead of the blade to get around curves and weird turns. I can lock my wrist a lot better this way and prevent unwanted angles in my cuts. The layers get attached together with contact cement and then the bevels are sanded in. I sanded both the front and the back on this to make the foam look thinner than it actually is. All the Batarangs got 2 coats of Plasti Dip to seal everything and ready it for paint. I saw several color variations for each of the Batarangs, but went with what I thought made them stand out more from each other. Nice, easy base layers of spray paint. Of course, they have to be a little dirty if much props is gonna make them. I can't make something clean. For hanging on a wall, I thought it was a little too much to put blood effects on, so I went with just dirtying up a little bit with some acrylic paint. You dab it onto your material, pushing it into all the little cracks and crevices. Then you wipe off most of it with a paper towel. I usually make about 2 or 3 passes when I'm dirtying up my props just to kind of give that stacked layer look and sneak up on what I want for the outcome to be as far as dinginess. I went to the hobby store in my town and they had these shadow boxes on sale for like half off, so I was like, yeah, I need to get one of those for my Batarangs. I also picked up some 3M tape to stick them to the surface. After trying a bunch of different layouts, I settled on one, got them even by eye, and then just tacked them down. I wanted to go chronologically, but it would have made the balance of them all a bit uneven visually, so I ended up just kind of randomly spacing them and trying to match it as far as like size and color so that they were staggered.
And we are finished. Here's the end result. I'm going to try and keep it angled down so that there's not a glare off of any of the studio lights onto the glass, but I think it turned out pretty awesome. Personally, I like the BALE and the KEATON designs. KEATON was really the first one that I kind of got into as a kid, and then the BALE one I think is more like an actual shuriken type throwing weapon. To me, it's the most practical of them. I do remember very vaguely West's Batman being syndicated on television when I was real little, and watching it from time to time. But yeah, I've been liking Batman for quite some time, and I know I got some other people in my family that are big Batman fans. So maybe you will try and make one of these yourselves and impress your friends with your ability to turn foam into Batarang and a bit of nostalgia in the process. Yeah. Maybe you'll get some.
Yay!
And inevitably, they're going to ask you, how'd you make that? You can give them one of these. Tell them, much props. Like, I'm not gonna like throw it at you because it's glass, but you want to get a real close look, I'll show you my favorite one.
If you enjoy what I do here on YouTube and want to see me continue to build things like this one, please consider joining these awesome people listed here over on my Patreon to build a bigger, better, more creative community together.